those families, some of who have yet to be settled.
You know what was my highlight in the international sphere? Mia Motley at COP and her utterances and becoming the first. No, she has become the World Health, the Earth Ambassador or something like that this year. And what she did with Barbados in terms of making Rihanna, removing. I think politically she's the win for the world this year. And looking at her, all I want for Christmas is a Prime Minister like Mia Motley. All I want for Christmas is a government that is not corrupt. All I want for Christmas is Mark Golding removing his beard and looking more youthful and friendly. Looking more approachable. All I want for Christmas is an opposition that can stand up despite being 14 and fight for the good of this country.
Yes. Another highlight for me, I think, was the Klansman trial. I think that was...
I didn't follow that much, you know.
Okay.
It's a lot of things that came out of that trial.
So I think that trial was very monumental because I think that the amount of access that regular persons had to the trial one, I think that was very monumental. Because normally we would have to wait on media reports to hear what happened in that trial. So I think that was, but also the witness. Oh my gosh, the star witness of the Klansman trial. It was like, I don't know if you've ever seen that meme with the guy reading off the paper. It was like he was just, his mouth was just on spring. He just never did like he was just here to tell everything. Like he came. You know, you remember when Miss Lou used to have the show and she sit down and she tell a story with little people. It's like he was just going. He just did a bingling, he was just continuing. So I think that was a big highlight for me locally, the Klansman trial. And for us it really confirmed a lot of things that we have constantly heard as rumors and whispers about the criminal underworld and even things about, because I've heard it multiple times, you know. I've heard people say it, but whenever I heard people say it, it sounded fringe that, you know, criminal networks actually look at crime statistics and actually try to turn up the thing when they feel like they're not doing. And now we heard it straight from somebody who was within a gang that this is actually something that happens. And that we also, I think it highlighted to us that criminals, which I've been saying for a long time, that the idea that most Jamaicans have of criminals and what a criminal look like is a bunch of dunce people who don't follow the news, them can barely speak English, them walk around as crofts or quote unquote. But these are people who are well organized and they're running businesses, multi-million dollar.
And they have networks into prominence.
But you know what is what surprised me was the shortage of oxygen in our hospitals. Dear Minister Tufton, that mistake that happened in the third wave of COVID, don't let it repeat itself for Omicron wave and the waves to come.
If what we're seeing out of the US now is an indication.
Well, I'm sorry, that one just took me by surprise. I was so shocked. Like
what's happening in the US?
That did not
73% of new infections are Omicron related in the US.
Yeah, what I'm interested, that whole oxygen thing, I was just very surprised that did not cost Minister Tufton his career. I was so shocked.
Yeah, but you see, because Minister Tufton is a marketer that has some of the best marketing gurus that can flip any story. And what I found strange is that they were doing vaccination and near 200,000 vaccines had to be wasted and dumped. But yet still, Jonathan and Roger, we're in a country that a politician can thief, still sit in the parliament, still have a ministry, and the order of the day is let us go on.
Yeah.
And then what I find also strange and disheartening, the conversation about the cult group in St. James has just been hushed up. We don't know if the man has been buried. We don't hear of no funeral.
Is that something for public consumption?
There were many reports.
He has been buried? When?
There's actually a funeral on YouTube now. You can go and watch it.
Really? So what I am saying is that underground wickedness and cultism that presented itself face in October is as clear sign that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but principalities and powers, Roger. And what I see with the war of state of public emergencies and the crime fighting plan, we don't see, and I hear Dr. Horace Chang saying that Zozo is the greatest anti-crime plan from independence. Dr. Chang, is your mental health in tune? Or are you getting some signs of dementia? What is that you're talking about, Zozo, when in your own constituency for the month of October, November, over 100 people died between Norwood, Albion, and on those places? Dr. Chang, Zozo never had no plan for social enterprise. Zozo did not see to it that people were placed in works. Zozo never see to it, Roger, that we took ourselves where there was a serious reduction in crime. So how then can you boast that Zozo, Dr. Chan?
Zozo had a social component that was never built out.
Never built out. So how is it that you're going to claim Zozo, Dr. Chang, as what? A success story? Come on, man.
Our next big story for me this year was definitely the George Wright issue.
How they sat in the house, mighty God.
I personally think that was the biggest story of this year, and I think.
Are you serious?
And I'll tell you why. I think in terms of the consequences of it, I don't think we see it immediately. But I think the standard of I think that story for me was where the standard of governance in this country really took a fall, and it showed me that a politician can do anything in Jamaica, regardless of how reprehensible it is, and get away with it.
But there's no charge. That was
yeah, because the lady, she never came forth. So, but you know the funny thing is, this George Wright situation, you hear politicians says end violence against women, right? But George Wright is still sitting in the house. Alleged
as an independent.
Yeah, that's
but
the political ramifications.
No, man, he should not. A prime minister should not have him in the house.
A prime minister with the amount of political capital that Andrew Holness
could have forced him to resign. But how did you know the funny thing? How did the prime minister ask Floyd Green?
How could you force an innocent man to resign?
Allegations, but there is enough.
That's a woke perspective that is unfortunately sweeping this country. The taint of are you thinking the person guilty is not enough for the person to lose their job.
So how comes the Royal Reid resign?
Up till now we don't know.
No, and that is the point. And I think that for me, I'm not saying that he should have resigned, but my thing is that the entire story for me showed me how politicians, as a politician in Jamaica, how you can get away with so much. Okay. Because even the fact that he has yet to answer whether or not he
abused the woman
showed me that he has a complete disregard for the electorate.
I get you.
And so, I mean, yeah.
You know, one of the next things that bothers me.
Is it that bother you? What is on your list?
Yes.
Yeah.
NSWMA and the garbage disposal. Kingston is stink, very stink. When you walk the streets and you see the rats and the pile up of baby pampers and all of those things, greeted even uptown Jamaica and downtown Jamaica. I say to Mr. Aubin today, the man who is in charge of NSWMA, I say to the chairman, Dennis O'Brien, I say to the minister responsible for local government, what Joan Gordon did when the conversation is spruce up Jamaica, nice up herself. She cleaned every street. You see, this time, they will be carrying all of the garbage. Right now, I pass through Papine. The garbage situation in there is stink. Mayor of Kingston, Delroy, what are we doing, Mr. Williams? What are we doing about our garbage disposal plan? It is awful. And what is hurting for me also, what is on my list, was the whole reopening of schools and the face-to-face learning. I genuinely believe that the Ministry of Education, under the auspices of Favour Williams, needs more practical technocrats who can help her to chart the way forward for Jamaica. Because education is in a crisis with their multiple allegations of corruption that has laden the Ministry of Education for the past 2.5 years. For the digital divide, for the gaps with regards to the sixth form program and launching out a mandatory 7-year plan. There's too much smoke screen and clouds, dark clouds over the Ministry of Education. And I think teachers like Nadine Mollay, principals like Nadine Mollay, and Cassan Troop and those people have done so much great work in education that possibly they need to adopt her prototype as how to do the launching out of face-to-face learning.
Well, yeah, Cassan is the acting chief education.
And with her Grace McLean as her PS, something is wrong.
My next story, major story, would actually not be in politics. It's actually in sports. So I definitely think that the highlight of the year for a lot of Jamaicans was the women's sprint 100-meter clash. First, it started with Sha'Carri, starting out her season with some bullet times at 10.7, consistently running that. Then, the woman herself, who, by the way, which I keep on reminding people, Shelly, and actually, the start of her season had me very content. She was running 11. So I was just like, wow, okay, I don't know how this looked. 3 weeks later, she turns up at the National Stadium with a meet that almost didn't happen. Yeah. And she turns up and she runs a bad 10-6. Yes. 10-6, 10-6-3. And then we see now 10-6-4 actually. And then, she turned up at the national trials and, she dominated. She ran at her personal best in the 200-meter. Then you saw the emergence of a Sherika Jackson. And then... and
Brianna's the future of athletics.
Yeah, well, I don't agree with that. But 4 days after we heard, a particular young lady from the United States had tested positive for marijuana. So it was just a saga that just continued. Going into the Olympics, Shelly-Ann was a clear favorite. Sha'Carri was making a whole heap of money and she running off from it. Then at the Olympics, Shelly-Ann was upstaged by Elaine Thompson-Herah. After that, you thought that the saga was finished. It wasn't, Elaine went on to lower her personal... Well, Elaine set an Olympic record and then she went on to lower the national record even more to 10.54. Then there was a major clash in Eugene.
This is a sports historian.
Yeah, man. This was then the clash in Eugene between Sha'Carri that was hyped up.
That never happened.
And the saga it still didn't end right there.
I love the emoji that they did with Sha'Carri. Oh, Jesus.
Emoji was then
there's Sha'Carri. How are you this morning?
Shelly-Ann came back to beat Elaine with another PB of herself with a 10.60. Then what was into... Then... I think it just, and then it all culminated with Elaine Thompson-Herah leaving Hero, leaving MVP.
Yeah, and she have a new management,
Yeah, and
who's the new management, Jonathan?
Andy Sports.
Who are they?
They're
Marvin Anderson, I think.
Yeah,
they're
Marvin Anderson, and they're the same club that does Jahil Hyde, Natasha Morrison, Natasha Martin. I'm trying to remember who else.
But that's good. But you see, in the sporting fraternity, I love that COVID protocols were put in place to have a football match, to have champs, to have Manning Cup. And I'm sure the new norm, living with COVID and existing in the ecosystem, I'm hoping that even when Omicron comes here, Jamaica cannot afford another lockdown.
Yeah. We may have to do another lockdown.
Yeah, but...
Because the Jamaican population.
But I'm going to say this to you, Roger. I'm going to say this to you. There is no empirical evidence that stipulates or suggests.
No empirical evidence to what?
That stipulates that a lockdown.
Well, that's true.
Supports a reduction in COVID.
A lot of results in
So why, in my view,
no, the evidence does suggest that. I think what is a stronger argument to make is that the economic fallout of the lockdowns.
Yeah, because
there's strong evidence.
Prime Minister, you said it in the Parliament a few weeks ago. You're not doing another lockdown. Prime Minister. That's what I'm saying to him.
It's not the lockdown as much as it is the
practices.
The prohibition of key events. So you don't have to lock down as much as if you ensure that there is
no party, no carnival.
No thing.